A good day to you all. My name is Amit, and I would like to take the opportunity of this video to discuss a topic that I find interesting. And the topic for today happens to be the idea, the notion of the organic intellectual placed forth by the leading scholar Antonio Gramsci. So Antonio Gramsci was a member of the deputies of the Italian Communist Party as well as the leader of the Italian Communist Party before the dictator, uh, the um, the totalitarian uh, Benito Mussolini came into place. And of course, as the story goes, Antonio Gramsci was put into prison, and in prison he wrote the prison notebooks. And the prison notebooks entailed a widespread understanding of reality that Antonio Gramsci wanted to project to the rest of the world. And this understanding of reality projected his ideas of linguistics, his idea of the political culture, his idea of the ruling class, his idea of the proletariat, his ideas of the bourgeoisie, his ideas of as to how society is to be mended in the right manner possible. And this is what I'd like to discuss in this video more often. I'd like to discuss the topic of the organic intellectual that has been placed by Antonio Gramsci, as to what is the organic intellectual and as to how that is the ideal that everybody should be striving forward, is the notion that I want to put forth. So, moving forward with Gramsci, during his tenure in prison, as most people in solitary confinement or in any form of confinement write books and think of a lot of subjects, and that mode of thought, that intense, grueling sessions of thought, lead to what is to be reformation. And the purpose of prison inevitably happens to be reformation. Reformation through confinement, through social exclusion, is what prisons are for. And therefore, in the process of social exclusion, Gramsci thinks of a multitude of problems that exist in society, and one of them happens to be the idea of how reality is constituted within the linguistic structures, and that is where the significance of the forefront emphasis upon the idea of the language being the fundamental basis of the social order comes into play, as the language being the key communicator of power structures, as the argument that is being placed. That is number one. And number two is the idea of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, and the ability of the intellectual to stand with the proletariat. And Gramsci introduces the idea of the intellectual as someone who thinks intensely. Anybody without a prior academic background, with or without prior academic background, who thinks intensely upon a varied range of subjects and develops personal inferences. I repeat that again: personal inferences upon the multitude of issues that are societal as well as non-societal for some. And that is who Gramsci describes as an intellectual. Anybody with an ability to think for themselves. And the organic intellectual, according to Gramsci, who has climbed the bastions of academia, is someone who stands with the proletariat during the idea or during the symbolic or otherwise class struggle. So, how does the class struggle takes place in the symbolic sense? It is when the bourgeoisie and the proletariat have an inevitable tussle amongst themselves, and it is always the idea of the Gramscian sense of the the traditional intellectual who stands with the ruling class, who stands with the economically well-off classes, who stands with the mercantile classes, whereas it is the idea of the organic intellectual to stand with the proletariats, to stand with the working class, and therefore create a working class intelligentsia so that the working class movement could be propelled forward. There's lots of incentives with standing with the ruling class. There's lots of incentives to standing with the mercantile class. There's lots of incentives to standing with the class that finds itself to be on top of the value chain. But then on the other hand, standing with the proletariat, or standing with the not so ruling class, or standing with the working class that is fighting for their existence on a very existential plane, is what Gramsci describes the function of the organic intellectual to be. In a very crude sense, the organic intellectual could be someone who could be described as someone who's commonsensical, not existing within the high boroughs of societal life, and can connect with the normal person, and someone who can really relate to in this particular notion or this particular example would be Mr. Sitaram Yechuri, who happened to be the former General Secretary, God bless his soul, who could connect to the normal person, who could connect to the average person, yet talk of dialectical materialism, historical materialism, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, or any other conflict, or any other matter that is so-called intellectualized in the public domain. And that is where we find a core distinction. That is what I believe the distinction between a normal intellectual and an organic intellectual, Jaiva Buddhi Jivi as we call it in Malayalam, and someone who stands with the the purpose of a larger movement without the credentials of being with or without the credentials of being an intellectual, and supports the intelligentsia advances of that particular movement in one manner or the other. That is where the entire notion of the organic intellectual comes into play, and that is what I wanted to put forth in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please do subscribe, like, and please do share your valuable comments in the comment section. And until next time we meet, this is me signing off. Good night.